And what's up, everybody? I'm back with another video. Today we're gonna try something today that I haven't really done before, and that's I'm gonna review a show. Um, I've only really done this for Big Brother, which is a lot different of a show than the show I'm going to be reviewing today. But I wanted to try this because today the show that I want to review is The Last of Us. Now, I've done Last of Us reviews, but that's of the games. But they made a show based off the games. And I wanted to do this because I have watched the show, the first two seasons. There's going to be a third season. And I wanted to kind of give some thoughts, how I think it compares to the game and, stuff like that. Because the Last of Us 1 and 2 games are two of my favorite games of all time. And so I was really excited to finally watch the show. But here's how I'm going to break this down. Today we're going to be talking about the first season, because the first season goes along with the first game. Now season 2 and the soon to be season 3 will go along with the second game. So I'm not going to talk about season 2 right now. I'm probably going to wait until season 3 comes out. But season 3 is projected not to come out till 2027. So maybe I will do a separate video on season 2 down the line. But I'm going to try this out first, see how it goes, and then maybe we'll make another one. We'll see. But today I'm going to be talking about season 1 and how I think it compares to the game, how faithful it was. Is it better than the game, worse than the game? Key differences, all that kind of stuff. So here we go. Got a lot of thoughts. Let's just jump right into it, shall we? I will say that right off the bat, we'll talk about the opening. The opening, I think, is just as good, if not better, than the game. And again, this gets into one of my key points on why I think The Last of Us translates so well from a game to a show. Because it is very narrative driven. And with the show, you don't have to worry about gameplay. You don't have to worry about engaging the player with gameplay. So you can take that time that's lost, or they take the time that you save, not including gameplay, and you can translate into more drawn out scenes to better express what's going on. You have the news scene from this 1968, and I'm talking about the cordyceps before it even started. Then you fast forward to the outbreak, and everything that goes on there. But you get to see more Joel and Sarah's life before everything goes down. Then you get a lot more drawn out stuff on how everything goes down. But they do, in the opening with the news scene, and then there's an opening in the second episode that goes over 2, and then a couple other pieces. They are able to more give some upfront science about cordyceps infection, on how it works and everything like that. So when some action scenes do come in and some key plot points come later down the line, we are more educated on how things work. In fact, they even do kind of change some stuff up with the science of the cordyceps that we don't even see in the game. Such as that like hive mind mentality with like the vines growing in the dirt and the ground. Like you step on something 50 miles away, they'll run at you and shit like that. Which that's very interesting. Granted, they don't do anything with it after episode 2, in the first season at least. And then they do bring it back in season 2 a little bit more. But that's all we really get for here. But it's an interesting concept that I do like that. But back to the opening. I think the opening is really, really good. It does what the game opening intended. You get attached to Sarah, and then Sarah dies. And I think it's done really, really well. It is done really, really well. So, let's talk about some of the casting now. Pedro Pascal, I think, is a great Joel. I haven't really experienced a whole lot of Pedro Pascal's work. I know people are kind of tired of him because he shows up in everything. But This was the first time I'd ever experienced anything with Pedro Pascal in it, at least that I know. There's probably something else I've seen of his that I just don't remember him being in or didn't recognize him. But I think he plays a really good Joel here. I really do. He fits the character really, really well. I do think video game Joel is better than show Joel, but it's not by a large margin. I just think that game Joel is a little bit more hardcore, so it opens up a little bit more room for character development. And we do get character development in the show with Joel, but it's not as noticeable because there's not as much of a shift. You know what I mean? But then we get to Ellie, and here's what I'll say. People are not happy with Bella Ramsey as Ellie. I think in this season, and I want to emphasize, season 1, this season, I think Bella Ramsey is a good Ellie. I don't think Bella Ramsey, though, was the best actor for the role. A lot of claims and a lot of evidence came out that there were much better actors that looked more like Ellie and could play a good Ellie. I think Bella Ramsey's acting is fine. I think she does a really good job at capturing a young Ellie with the fruitfulness and wonder of life, and then, you know, also the relationship arc and everything like that. I think she does a really good job of it. Obviously, she looks nothing like Ellie. That's what everybody likes to comment on. But, I mean, when the acting is fine, I can kind of dismiss that. And I think it's done pretty well here. I will say that perception does... I will say that Bella Ramsey being so good this season kind of kills her chances of being good next season. But again, we'll talk about that in the future. Don't worry. But yeah, I think Bella Ramsey is a fine Ellie. I do. There's a lot more gore, I felt like, in the show versus the game. Because again, there's a lot more time to put emphasis on this stuff. There's very disgusting, gross, gory stuff. Take Tess's death, for example, when there's the makeout scene with an infected right before she blows the whole place up. The whole David stuff at the end, near the end of the show, obviously that's supposed to be pretty horrific, and it is. Very fucking horrific. And overall, I mean, a lot of other stuff, like with the infected, obviously they're a lot more detailed. You get a lot of up close stuff with them, and it feels a lot more gory than the game. That could just be because better quality. It could be, again, more emphasis. But overall, I think that's just how it worked. Let's get to the infected as well a little bit before I continue on. Because the infected, because there is no gameplay, there is less stuff to do with the infected in the show. The infected, I don't like putting it this way, but I don't know a better way to put it. The infected are kind of a secondary piece of it all. Now, in the game, they are also a secondary piece. Because the character arcs, relationships, all that stuff, that is the priority here. And the setting and the mood and the drama is all done by the infected and the apocalypse type bullshit, right? That's what it's supposed to be. But I think even more so in the show than the game, the infected take a back seat. There's not a whole lot of infected interactions. Obviously, have the outbreak and the opening stuff with that. But and then there's a couple of different infected encounters in the second episode when Tess gets bit and then Tess dies. There's all that. There's a couple there's a couple of things in episode number, I think it's 4, 5, 4 and 5 that kind of deal with it as well. But that's really it. There's not a whole lot of infected interactions. What we do see of them is gory and pretty cool, mostly like clickers and stuff like that. But yeah, it is cool. It conveys the horror of them very much so. And obviously, like, you want to say you want to see more of them, but I really don't know how they would put more of them in here without it just becoming an all-out like show about a brawl and then taking away the more important aspect of the show and the game, which is the relationships of the characters. Yeah, I don't know how else you do that, but no going back now. So and then we get to my most favorite episode of not just the season, but the show, and maybe in television overall. And that's episode number 3, the Bill and Frank episode. See me kind of tearing up a bit here. When I'd say this is an incredibly well done episode, not doing it justice. The Bill and Frank episode is awesome. It is awesome. Bill is a lot more tame of a character in the show than he is the game. But Frank is alive, and we get to see the progression of their relationship from Outbreak Day all the way until they both die. And that's another difference. In the game, Bill stays alive throughout the whole thing. This time he does not, which in turn robs us of what I thought was one of the better parts of the game, which was the Ellie and Bill dialogue. We don't get any of that in the show, which is unfortunate, but I'll take it. First off, Nick Offerman as Bill, incredible casting choice. He plays that character to a T. I also think the Frank character is done really, really well. And they had a lot to work with him because they didn't have a lot. I guess, okay, I said that wrong. They didn't have a lot to work with because he's not in the game at all except for a dead corpse because he got bit. Neither of them get bit in the show. Instead, Frank gets MLS and they kill themselves. So yeah, but I mean their relationship is absolutely beautiful. It's very, very wholesome. It's, and it's kind of nice just seeing like normal life still being lived out in the apocalypse, contrary to the rest of the episodes. And then the ending of the episode is just fucking amazing with Joel and Ellie leaving the house with Bill's truck. And then they got Long, Long Time by Linda Ronstadt playing in the background, and it is just, oh man, great episode. I could go back and watch episode 3 on its own. I love it. It is really, really, really good. And I am so glad that they decided to make a sole episode for Bill and Frank. I really am glad that they did that. Because and that is where they really showed their stuff and it paid off. And I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. So that was that. Now I did want to point out some other differences. I've already mentioned a few of these, but I'll point them out about some big differences between the game to the show. Overall, there are not that many differences. The show is the first season, at least, is because, well, again, season 2, get ready for that. But I think season 1 is overall pretty faithful to the game. I already pointed out a few differences, but I'll mention a few here as well. The outbreak takes place in 2003, not 2013. This is to coincide with the show when it released, which was 2023, so the 20 years later thing would happen in 2023 instead of 2033. Like I said, Frank is alive and Bill isn't as rough in their episode. More explanation on how the infection started with less infected interactions. The segment after the Bill and Frank episode, with the Raiders and all that sort of stuff, and the Sam and Henry portion of the game, that part in the show, instead of taking place in Pittsburgh, takes place in Kansas City, with Pittsburgh just being a brief showcase / mention. They do mention it in episode 7, the David episode. They also mention it. They also do drive through Pittsburgh, and you do get to see it, which is cool. But the sequence that takes place in Pittsburgh in the game actually takes place in Kansas City in the show, and it's a little bit more drawn out with another really cool, actually, an infected segment that I forgot to bring up earlier, with the big infected raid on Kansas City with the bloater scene. It's the only bloater that we get to see in the entire show, entire first season. That's done really, really well too. Now I really like that part, so that was cool. And then speaking of Sam is younger in the show. He's also deaf, which he's not in the game. And unlike the game, he reveals his infection to Ellie before turning, whereas in the game, he doesn't tell anybody and then just returns. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. But yeah, it's a weird choice to make him deaf. I don't know why they decided to do that. Because I think in the game, Sam and Ellie do have a really nice conversation before Sam turns. And it's cool. I don't know why they decided to do that. I think it's because Sam in the show is a lot younger. So I don't think they would have had that same level of interactions. But they could have found somebody to cast to be around the age that Sam is in the game, right? And then, of course, they do also in the show include the Left Behind DLC portion of when we find out how Ellie got bit and found out about her immunity. So that is cool that they include that portion of it in the game. They also include background on how Ellie is immune, which is not something that they included in the game. And we do get a cameo from Ashley Johnson, Ellie's voice actor in the games. She is Ellie's mom in the show. And we found out that Ellie's mom got bit right as she was giving birth to Ellie. And that's how she has the immunity, through some weird stuff like that. Okay, cool, I guess. So that's cool. They don't do any of that in the game. And then the mall flashback with the Left Behind DLC, I think is good. But there is a big difference there too, as it's not an infection horde that attacks Riley and Ellie there. Instead, it's just one infected that attacks and bites both of them. And yeah, other than that, pretty much the same. And then finally, the ending of the show takes place the ending of the season takes place in Salt Lake City instead of Seattle. So that's the other big difference. But the ending plays out pretty much the same otherwise. Like the ending of the game, everything after the Kansas City sequence, everything after the Sam and Henry portion of the show, pretty much, with a few minor alterations here and there, is the same as it is in the game. Again, outside of the location that the ending takes place, it is almost directly the same game to show. So I was pretty happy about that, which is probably the second half of the show. So the other big difference is that they were able to get real brands and put real logos and real brands in the depictions of the abandoned, ruined cities, which they couldn't do in the game. And I think that just really does make it feel more real. Like in episode 3, Bill's like, everybody's going to come around looking for a free lunch. This is not an Arby's. And then in the next episode, they drive into Pittsburgh and you see an Arby's logo, and it's like, oh, reference, Arby's. Or they did like Chef Boyardee, referenced a couple of times. Or in the mall, like you see a Best Buy and you see a Target and you see a Subway and all this sort of stuff. You go into like a Spirit Halloween store and stuff like that, and you get to, and it's just like those, having the brands in there that are real, make it feel more like a real thing, and it makes it feel more real, which I like. The game does a really good job at making it feel real, obviously. No denying that, but just a little piece of the puzzle, putting real brands in here to fit in with the real locations and to fit in with the people. It is nice. So that's all I really have to say about the show, the first season. It's a really good show. Really good. Again, episode 3 might be my favorite episode of television of all time. I think all the other episodes are also really, really good. The acting is really good. The abandoned city depictions are awesome. The infected are cool, though pretty freaking creepy. And as far as its faithful rendition to the game, yeah, it's pretty freaking faithful, I would say so. HBO, I think you did a pretty good job there, all things considered. That is credit that I am not going to give you when talking about season 2, though. So, my final score for this season, I think I'm going to score it. Give it a 9. Give it a 9 out of 10. I think it was not perfect. They're not perfect by any means, but I think overall, it's really good. So, it's cool. Anyways, though, that's my thoughts on the first season versus the game. I think the game is better. I will say, I think the first game is better than the first season. Not by much, though. I think the first game is better than the show. There are parts that there's parts that the show does better. Bill and Frank, the brands, stuff like that. But the game does more things better. Ellie's better. The characters overall, the relationships are better. Yeah, so I think that's where it kind of prevails. So, with that in mind, though, it's going to do it for my review of the first season of The Last of Us show. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to review season 2 right away, or if I'm going to review season 2 and 3 together, along with the second game, like comparing it to the second game, so I can do a full comparison at once. I'm not too sure yet. We'll see what happens. I'm going to think about it for a little while, and let a few other videos that I want to do go out first, and then maybe we'll come back to this one. But if you want to hear me review the second season, I'll gladly do it. Just let me know in the comment section down below. And if you've seen the first season, let me know your thoughts about it in the comment section down below as well. How do you think it is pretty faithful to the first game or not? Let me know, because I'm interested for some conversation. And what do you think they could have done differently? What do you think is better, the show or the game? Let me know. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it with this review. Stay tuned for other much more amazing content. And until next time, we'll see you guys later. Goodbye.